So this video is the practice final with me going through everything. Since there are 60 questions on this, rather than doing all 60 in one time, I'm going to break it into 3 20-question chunks. So if you are looking for the answer to number 47, you should watch another video because this one I'm only going to do the first 20. And I'll show you. This is what your formula sheet is going to look like roughly during your test. I included the exponents down here. If you want to get a closer look at this is on Google Classroom. If there's any equations that you would rather have on here that you can think of, I might not put it on there, but it doesn't cause any harm to ask. So please, if there's a formula that you think you could use and you want to see it on here, let me know. And again, if I think you also need it, I will put it on here. Not going to hurt anything to ask. So let's go ahead and start this one. Equation. Honestly, we did not do this exclusively in this chapter or in this semester. But at this point, if you do not have a two-step, I think it's easy. I'm more saying that we have done this. I mean, this should have been something you guys are pretty good at in Algebra 1. So all year in Algebra 2 didn't some issues. Be very difficult. So number 2 here, really sensitive now. We're dividing everything by 5, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. So that cancels. So we end up with 2x plus 11 is equal to 35. Then from here, subtract both sides by 11. Get 2x is equal to 35 minus 11 is 24. And lastly, divide both sides by 2. We get x is equal to 12. Now remember, in both of these, you can plug those x's back in and double check. 2 times 12, 4 plus 11 is 35, divided by 5. You're always welcome to do that. Also, since it's multiple choice, you could plug your answers into that x and see which one works. If you're curious about that, I made a like tips and tricks or whatever, how to do multiple choice videos, how to do multiple choice questions video, and I mentioned it in there. So if you're interested in all that, is definitely a video you can check out. It's the multi-step equation. I'm going to combine both of those first. So I'm going to do 85. Combine those. We don't have to take them to the other side of the equal sign, so we just put them together. I'm not adding 22 to both of these. Mistake. So then it's 2x plus 13 is equal to 3x plus 63. Now from here, multi-step equations. Now again, you guys have heard me say 1,000 times this year, this part of the question here, question looks like this. There's 4 different things you can do and still get the right answer. I'm going to choose to add my 3. You don't have to do it that way. Best will stay positive. Then subtract 13. Lastly, divide both sides by 5. You end up getting x is equal to 10. Again, you could plug that back in and double check. 2 times 10 is 20, plus 13 is 33. So if you get 33 on this side, you better plug it in and get 33 on this side. Number 4, we did some questions like this a little earlier. There's a couple, or I guess I should say, in the last chapter, we did some similar to this. But essentially, if you want to multiply everything by 4 right away and get rid of that, you can. I'm going to wait until the end, personally. 15 minus 7 is 8. Then from here, you multiply both sides by 4. That cancels that denominator, so we get x is equal to 32. What is the slope of this line graph? Remember, your slope is your rise over your run, so just pick 2 points that it goes through. On the answer key, I went from this point to this point, but it also goes through this point really nicely, goes through this point really nicely, so whatever 2 points you want to use, you can. I'm going to just, example, I'm going to go from this one down to here like I did on the answer key. So remember, it's rise over run, so we went down 1, 2, so if you go down 2, that's negative 2. And then you go over 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, so you go over 4 to the right. So remember, up and down is in the numerator, left and right is in the denominator. Since I went down, the numerator is negative. Since I went to the right, then the denominator is positive. So then reduce this, that is negative 1/2. Now again, you could have done the other way around. You could have gone from this one first, and then up to this one. So you could have gone up 2, so that's positive, but then to the left 4, which is negative. That gets you the exact same thing. I guess technically that would be under here, but it all means the same thing, negative 1/2. Excuse me. So this next one has a couple questions about this parabola here. Now, I gave myself a lot of room so I could show different ways and so you could read my handwriting. So if you're wondering how I'm already at the bottom of page 1 and you guys, yours isn't there yet, that's okay. So give the give the coordinates of the vertex to the graph on the right. So the vertex is the right where it switches directions. So it's going up and up and up, then it slows down and gets to its peak and then starts going down. That's the vertex. The vertex, as an ordered pair, you go to the right 3, and then you go up 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your ordered pair for your vertex. Then the next one says, what are the x-intercepts or solutions to the parabola? Now, I think it'd be harder if it said solutions, but the x-intercepts kind of give it away. It's where it crosses the x-axis. This one's not an ordered pair. So this one is x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 5. Or sometimes I put 1 comma 5. Just do not put them in parentheses. All right, moving on. So sketch a graph with the following criteria. Now again, you're sketching the graph, so your graph might look different than mine. With 2 solutions, I mean, you could draw a graph that looks like this. That's what I would do. You could draw a graph that looks like this. You could draw a graph that is over to the left, so it looks like this. Draw one over to the right. There's all these endless graphs. The biggest thing is it's got to cross that axis, that x-axis. This axis has got to cross twice. One solution is where it would just touch it and come back up, so it only touches once. Again, it could open downward and do that same thing. And no solutions if it doesn't touch at all. Again, it could also open downward. Technically, if there's no solution, there are imaginary solutions, but when we're talking about graphings, that's fine. You're going to leave it that way. Find the axis of symmetry of the parabola. So the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2 times a. Now remember, this is your a, b, and c. So negative b over 2 times a. That is negative 8 over 2 times 2. So it's positive 8 over 4, which is 2. Before, when we did this, then we also used that to find the vertex, which means we just plugged it back in. We're not doing that. All it asks for is the axis of symmetry. You can leave it like that. Factor x squared minus 2 minus 8. So I do the x factoring. Now remember, the first number times the last number goes on top here. I know a lot of people say if there's not a number in front, put your last number up there. And you're absolutely right. But if you keep doing that, I have a lot of people that forget and they just think they always put the last number. So if there is a number in front, all they do is put the negative 8 and then miss it. So just keep in mind, I'm always going to mention it's the first number times the last number that goes on the top. Numbers negative 2. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to be the top, but then add up to be the bottom. So the way I do this is I always start with my negative 8, and I try to find numbers that multiply to be that. Now, since it's negative, I'm going to always put my negatives on the left. You don't have to do it this way, but I like this way. So negative 1 and 8 would multiply to be negative 8. Negative 2 and 4 would also multiply to be negative 8. I think that's pretty much it. So we then add up to be negative 2. Well, these are close. They add up to be positive 2, so all you have to do is switch your signs. So now, positive 2 times negative 4. Now, when we did factoring, I mentioned this, but it's definitely worth saying again. Please double check from here. positive 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Positive 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2. I've seen a lot of people miss it. Even at this point. And x minus 4, since there's that is our answer. This next one, we have 1 times 18 goes on the top, so that's 18, and they add up to be 9. So again, 18, I have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. So the ones we're looking for that add up to be 9 are 3 and 6. So positive 3, positive 6. Again, positive 3 times positive 6 does multiply to be 18. 3 plus 6 is 9, so that's x plus 3, x plus 6. And again, there's no number in front, so that's our answer. So same thing with this. 1, positive 3. So factors of negative 28 that add up to be 3. So again, if it's negative, I always just put my left side as negative. There's other ways to do it. You could also just make your left side positive and your right side negative, doesn't matter. Negative 14, 3 didn't work, negative 4 and 7. So which ones add up to be positive 3, negative 4 and 7? And again, if you did that and you got negative 3, you just have to switch the signs with your 4 and your 7. Ends up being x minus 4, but it is a 4, and x plus 7. So moving on to the next one. Now, the answer key for this, I think I did this 2 different ways. You could solve this the same way we've been doing, where it's 16x squared plus 0x minus 81. So factors of, 16 times negative 81 that add up to be 0. You could do that. It would just kind of be a little bit of a nightmare, but it does exist. Instead, this is where we're using the difference in squares. So remember, the difference in squares, the difference multiplied by 16 or 4, and then what number times itself is x squared is x. Now remember, it's got to be 4 and 4. You couldn't have done 2 and 8 to be 16. It's got to be the same number. So I first should have phrased it. What number times itself is 81 is 9. A my b. Now the difference in squares also, I put in the sheet over here. Your a and your b, then you use this part of the equation. 4x plus 9 and 4x minus 9. You could have had the plus or minus in the other order. You could have made this one minus, this one plus. Doesn't make any difference. But the 4x does have to come first. So this one, factor this by taking out a g, the greatest common factor. So between the 5 and the 20, I can take out 5. Between the x and the third and x squared, I can take out x squared. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 3x's I took 2, so I have 1 left. 20 divided by 5 is negative 4. I have 2x's, I took both of them out. That's your answer. You don't actually have to put the 1. That is fine. Factor by grouping. Remember, you're going to group the first 2 together and the last 2. Now, this isn't that important for the exam, but I always said make a sign here. Minus, it does change. It's going to be like that. We're going to not worry too much about that. So you're going to take that out of each one of the groups. First group, we're going to take out a x squared. So we have a 1x plus 5. The next group, I'm going to take out a positive 5, so I have x plus 5. These, that's the whole idea. So the other part goes together, 2x squared plus 5. And then the other 2 go in the same, go and overlap each other. That is x plus 5. Again, you could have done those the other way around. X plus 5 times 2x squared plus 5 doesn't make any difference on that. Factor the sum in different terms. Again, what number to the third is x to the third? That's x. What number to the third is 125? That is 5. So that's your A and B. Your A is x, your B is 5. And then again, you can follow this formula. So that A and B is what you got from here. That's the whole first part of this. A couple students get confused by this. This first part is just saying this is when you can use this equation. So when you have two perfect cubes is when you can use this equation. And that's also telling you how to find your A and B. X squared, or sorry, x to the third, so your A is x. 5 to the third, so your B is 5. Now this, I said plus minus for the first one, I want to put minus plus. The big thing is that those two are opposites of each other. So if I have plus to start, I have minus in the next one. So this one, we start with a plus. So I have A plus B, so x plus 5. Then it is x squared minus A times B, 5 times x, plus, that one's always a plus, B squared, so 25. Now again, we went into a little bit more detail when we did that in class, but on the final exam, that's as much depth as I want to go into it. That's all you'll use. Uh-oh. So, number 17 and 18, all this was either factoring, quadratic formula, or square roots. Now, I will tell you ahead of time, you don't have to use a quadratic formula on any of these because remember, the quadratic formula works on all of them. Factoring only works on the ones that you can factor. So on the test and on here, you can factor almost all these. I guess this one, yeah, that's solved with greatest common factor. So yeah, you can factor all of these. And I'll talk to you guys about that once we get there. This one, we're looking at factors of 15 to be negative. So we have 1 and 15, 3 and 5. Now remember, 3 has to be positive. We want negative, so those both have to be switching signs. So negative 3 times negative 5. And again, double check. They do multiply to be positive 15. They do add to be negative 15. So x minus 3. Finally, the final game is multiple choice. Or you put a circle around and move on. We are solving what would make this part equal 0, this part equal 0. Why that is, please talk to me later, so we'll talk about that as well. Okay? So that is 3, and 5, and x is equal to 5. Now, shortcut, I still say like this. A lot of people look at this and they say, oh, well, if it's minus 3, that means positive 3, and if it's minus 4, it's just positive 5. But I like to say, what would make this 0? Positive 3. What would make this 0? What would you sub in? Positive 5. And the reason is because if you ever have one where instead of x minus 3, 2x minus 3, people then put positive 3 in. Remember, there's 2 in there. So this one, we factor out an x. So then we have x plus 8 left. Now, just like the last one, what would make this 0? Well, you'd plug in a negative 8. But then the other one is we factored out an x. Well, what would make that 0? Well, it's all by itself, so it's just going to be 0. And if you want to put it in parentheses to make it look more like what we're used to, you can. But it's just 0. So 0 and 8, sorry, 0 and negative 8 are your answers for that one. Next one, factors of 1 times 25 goes on the top, 10 goes on bottom. So you guys probably know this, but it's 5 and 5. So x plus 5, x is equal to negative 5, x is equal to negative 5. I should do some of these quadratic formula just to show those. I will after I do number 20, because 20 is the last one I'll do on this video. So again, we have another difference in squares. So my A is x because x times x is x squared. My B is 11 because 11 times 11 is 121. So you end up with x plus 11 and x minus 11. So that gives you negative 11, and the second one is positive 11. So that works fine. Now, and I did all of them with factoring. Now, all of them. Let me show you a couple of things you can do for some of these. So for instance, number 20, I guess maybe I could do all of them because there's not a ton. Number 20, the other way you could have done this one, and this is what I talked about at the beginning where I said, or using square roots. So you could have done where you added 121 to both sides. So x squared is equal to 121. Then you take the square root of both sides to cancel out the squared. So we have x is equal to, the square root of 121 is 11. But remember, it's plus or minus. You need the plus or minus when you cancel out a squared. When you cancel out a squared, plus or minus. But that's the same answer we had before. And we can solve any of these. So I'm going to real quick just with number 17 because I think most of you guys probably won't use a quadratic formula, and if you do use it, I'm assuming if you solve 17, you can use it for 19 and so on. So your A, your B is the one is with the x, and that's how I fix it. The A is with the x squared, the C is. So I have my A is 1, my C is 15. The quadratic formula, again, the quadratic formula is on your formula sheet as well. X is equal to negative the square root of parentheses minus 4 times 1 all over 2 times. Again, make sure you use parentheses because if you don't use parentheses, you're going to miss that one. It's not going to give you the right answer. So some of you guys type this whole thing in the calculator, which is funny. If you do that, again, you definitely need parentheses there. I like to do it in a couple of different steps. I like to do it in 2 steps. So it's positive. A squared, negative a squared minus 4 times 1 times 15 is 4 over 2. So plus or minus over 2. So we have 8 minus 2 over 2. So 8 plus 2 is 10. So that's 5. Minus 2 is 4, no, 6. 6 over 2 is 3. So that's where we got the 5 and the 3 from. Now, if you want to use that for number 18, that's fine. Just remember your C is 0, so your A is 1, your B is 8. Even number 20, you can use that. Just remember your B is 0, your A is 1, your B is 0 because there is no x term, and your C is negative 121. So you could have done that one as well with the quadratic formula. So I said I only do the first 20, so I'll save 21, 22 for the next video. If you have any questions, make sure you're letting me know. Make sure you're getting those answered before we take the final.